We'll be discussing for loops, and remember that loops are a form of control structure. Control structures basically determines the flow of execution of given code. So we've already looked at conditional control structures, which allow for a block of code to execute or blocks of code to execute based on specified conditions. In this case, loops and for loops in particular are used for repeating the execution of a given block of code within the loop's scope. So just to make sure that that makes sense, let's just start off with a very basic for loop. Then I'll explain what this means in a second. So I is equal to 0. I, let's say, is less than 3, and the I plus plus. So I'm just incrementing I here. And now, let me just say I'm going to console log hello world. It's a very basic example. And let me just demonstrate this. So I'm going to go to developer tools. So here we just go more tools on Chrome. Then we go developer tools to view the console. And if you look at the console here, whoops, just refresh first. Look at the console here. It says hello world 3 times. And actually, let me just make this 2. So it says hello world 2 times. Okay, so I'm going to say hello world, and then I'm going to say my name is Jack, just so you can see this more clearly. And I'm just going to, there we go. So it prints hello world, my name is Jack, and then it prints hello world, my name is Jack twice. Now, why does this happen? Well, first of all, let's go through the anatomy of this for loop. So first we have a counter variable I. Typically stands for index, but we use I, we use J, we can use C, we can use any kind of variable that we want, variable name, just like any other variable. So this will be our counter variable that we initialize. And then we put a condition. I must be smaller than 2, right? If I is equal to 2 or greater than 2, the loop must stop. Okay, I plus plus, that means I is increasing with each iteration, right? Each time this block of code runs, the loop's counter variable will be increasing. So first, it will start off I is equal to 0. So I is equal to 0, that will be the first implementation. It will run this block of code. By the end of this implementation, I is equal to 1. Now, why is I equal to 1? Because of this plus plus. Then it will go back to the top. Then, is I less than 2? Yes, I is equal to 1 now. Because I is less than 2, it will execute this block of code again. And then at the end of the block of code, it will be I is equal to 2. Now I is equal to 2. Now we go back. Check the condition. Is I less than 2? No. Now I is equal to 2, so we have to stop the loop. And so the loop here would have executed a total of 2 times. Let me just demonstrate how this works. So for example, console.log, the counter variable is now I. So I'm just going to put I here. See how this works. So the counter variable is initially what? 0. So it goes down, prints these 2 statements. At the end of it, it must increment by 1. So the counter variable now would be 1. So now we have to execute this code again. This condition is still valid, still smaller than 2. If we execute this condition again, counter variable now is 1. So by the end of the printing here, it increments. It becomes 2. Now the counter variable is 2. Because it's 2, it will no longer execute this block of code. So that's how that works. Right? And certainly, you can start with I negative. And now you have what you have here, what we call here an infinite loop. Let me just show you how this works. Don't try this at home. See, keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. Stop the page from loading. It's decrementing. Then it'll go -2 because it's decrementing. Then it'll go -3 because it's decrementing. And this condition will always be true. So this condition serves as a stopping point. Because this condition will always be true, it will loop forever. And what you have is an infinite loop. You don't want this. You don't want this infinite loop. See, this it keeps going. You see that? So you have to stop it manually. You have to close out of it. So there you go. So it went back to normal. And you don't have to use single increment here. You can always go +2, +3, +4, or negative, or multiplication, times 2, times 3, times 4, times 5. Right? You can make this variable move in any given way. For example, I could just say here I is equal to I +2. Or I could just use the shorter method. But let me just go I +2, and let me just make this 10 now. Smaller than 10. So let's go. So go 0, then you add 2, then you add 2 to I, then you add 2 to I6, then you add 2 to I8, and then when it's 10, it terminates and it no longer executes this block of code. So that's how that works. You see that? And in a similar way, you can sort of start, say, greater than 10. I can start at 100 here. And I can keep dividing by 2. I is equal to I divided by 2. And I told you there was an easier way to do this. I divide equal, or actually divide equal to 2. If you remember the other lesson that I taught you previously. There we go. It goes 100, divide by 250, divide by 225, divide by 212.5, so forth and so on. And once it goes below 10, if it goes below 10, this condition will be false because I must be greater than 10 in order for this condition to execute. That's how that works. Now, what if I wanted to stop at 5? For example, let me just increment it by 1. What if I wanted to stop at 5 and just make sure this block of code does not execute after 5 is reached? You can also do this manually. So you can just say, if my counter variable I is now equal to 5, strict equality 5, then let me just open close. I could just say break. So that's how the break keyword works. It just breaks out of the loop. So let me just show you how this works. Actually, it should start from 0. There we go. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now it's 5. Because it's 5, it will not come here. It will go to this condition and it will break outside of the loop. So you can force break the loop. But what if you wanted to skip 5? You use the keyword continue. And there we go. So now I is going from 1, 2, 3, 4. When it hits 5, it should not execute any more code right at the bottom here. It should just skip and go to the next iteration. So it goes to 6, skips 5, goes to 6, 7, 8, 9. When it reaches 10, this condition is false. And certainly now it can break out. You can also say less than equal to here, right? Less than equal to rather. There we go. We can use comparative operators too. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like that. So that's a very basic definition of a for loop. Next, because we've already touched on string, we will look at for loops to iterate through a string, convenient for loop to iterate through a string. And then when I introduce you to data structures, I will introduce you to loops to go through data structures like arrays and objects. So thank you very much.